Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for everyone to join us, and we'll get started soon. Okay, let's get started. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. But before we get started, I want to go through a couple of housekeeping items with you. If you don't know us, Taboola is the world's largest discovery platform. We work with 20,000 advertisers and publishers across the globe, and we reach 1.4 billion people with content and advertisements each month. As you're going through the webinar, as you're listening to us, I'd like to direct your attention to the right to the GoToWebinar control panel. Please feel free to ask any questions in the questions module throughout. And if you want to tweet at us or post on social media during the webinar, we ask that you use the hashtag #TaboolaTalks. So without further ado, let's introduce ourselves.
Hey everyone, so my name is Rachel Zalta. I head up research and insights here at Taboola. My background is in psychology, so I have an MA in social psychology. My focus was on persuasion psychology and online behavior. And I've been at Taboola, actually, I should update this, for 4.5 years already. The reason why they hired me at Taboola is because we understand that we have to try to understand people's motivations for their behaviors, why people are behaving in different ways in order to really succeed. So I look into data and I try to understand why and try to help with best practices.
And I'm Megan. I'm leading the content marketing team here at Taboola. I started out as a journalist in my career and transitioned into marketing pretty early on. I've worked in content marketing for about 7 years and have been at Taboola for 3 years now. And I've worked in a whole bunch of different types of technology, from ad tech, MarTech, HR tech, security, and worked in a bunch of different verticals working for those technology companies. You can tweet me at Megan Rosem or find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. So to get started, I guess we'll dive in. I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity that's out there for education marketers, right? And I feel like it's important to understand this because there's an opportunity of about $80 billion out there just for back to school campaigns alone, which is typically a big focus for education marketers. And the wider market itself is closer to $360 billion in the US alone. Of that $80 billion opportunity, $54.5 billion is spent on back to college campaigns in the US each year, and over $696.7 billion is spent on back to school in the US each year in general. So there's a lot of opportunity there to capitalize on, and most of these people are comfortable making purchases online. The National Retail Federation has reported that 55% of people shopping for back to school items are doing so online, they're doing research online, or they're making purchases online. But either way, over half of the people in this $80 billion market opportunity are looking for products online, and it's important to make sure your online campaigns are up to snuff in order to capitalize on this opportunity. So we're taking a look at that opportunity to try to define exactly where your opportunity is. So Taboola has tons of campaigns running through our network, millions at a time, and they're all organized by vertical. So we took a look specifically into the education vertical and analyzed how you can target effectively, how you can build creatives effectively, and how you can measure effectively. And when we say opportunity, we mean something very specific. So we're going to talk about opportunity in the terms of supply and demand. We're defining demand as a click. If you click on content or on an ad, we're assuming that there's a demand for it, you want to see it. And supply is the amount of education content out there. So when there isn't a lot of supply and there's a high demand, that's a high opportunity for education marketers to capitalize on. And we'll talk a little bit about what this means in real time as we move forward. So let's talk about targeting. In order to find the right people with your education campaigns, you're going to need to target correctly. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is the types of device that you're targeting. We all live in this mobile world, right? Mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. And it's obvious by this graph that education marketers have heard that, right? On the top here, the dots signify the click-through rate of consumers, and on the bottom, the spend percentage indicates the supply. Spend percentage specifically means the amount that education marketers are spending on the open web to distribute education content. So a lot of education marketers are distributing content on mobile devices, and there is quite a high demand for that. But where there's really a gap here, where there's really an opportunity, is in tablet devices. There's still quite a high demand for content on tablet devices and almost no supply. And there's a big opportunity there for education marketers to capitalize on.
Cool. So this one's interesting. This is looking at education throughout the year. So when during the year do we see higher demand, and when during the year do we see higher supply? Usually when I look at these kind of analyses, I like to look back 1 year. So let's look at 2018. And here you see that the spend is really high in the beginning of the year, and it kind of declines towards the, I don't know, a few months later. By mid-year, the spend is pretty low. And as opposed to that, if you look at the demand, the CTR is actually much higher the second half of the year. So the opportunity that we're seeing here is actually mid-year and even towards the end of the year. That's where we see the highest opportunity, because we see the highest CTRs there, and we see the lowest spend there.
So piggybacking off of that, more about time, right? It's not just about time of year. When in the week are education consumers interested in looking for content? So it's very clear from this graph, right? There's a high demand for content on Fridays. A lot of people are clicking on education content on Fridays and also leading into Saturdays. And most education marketers are responding to that. The supply is highest on the open web for education content during those days. But where education marketers are really missing the opportunity is there's also pretty high demand on Tuesday and Wednesday, and those are the days with the lowest supply. So try testing campaigns on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and see if you see a higher response for your particular audience.
Yeah, so looking at time of day is interesting too. So it's cool because we're starting from year and then day and then time of day. Really like minimizing there. And what we see here is that we see a lot of spend from the morning until like afternoon until around 4-ish. And then the spend goes down, as opposed to that, the demand for education content actually goes up around 10 p.m. So the opportunity there is really from 10 p.m. I'm assuming people are coming back from work or coming back from whatever their activity is, and then starting to look at like different opportunities that they could explore from the education perspective. So that's what it looks like from here. We could either try new campaigns that are only targeting these hours, or just increase CPC a little bit for those hours, because we see that higher CPC will probably pan out with a good CTR and a good conversion rate.
Absolutely. And I also just wanted to point out, it kind of looks like there's a huge opportunity here in the early AM hours, but it's actually a little bit tricky. It looks that way because there's not really a lot of people online during those hours. So if anyone is clicking at all, it's going to look like there's a very low supply and a very high demand, which is why we haven't marked it as an opportunity for you, when in reality, there's just not a lot of people online at that time, and it's not necessarily something we'd recommend you targeting. All right, so now into the juicy stuff. How do you capture their attention, right? Targeting people is worth nothing if you're not running great ads, if you don't have great content. What really makes people tick and what's going to make them convert, specifically for education consumers? So we want to start by showing you some examples here. This one is from Columbia University, and I actually haven't shown Rachel these examples yet, so she'll be part of the surprise as well. I want you guys and Rachel, you to think about a little bit what sort of strategies you think Columbia University is using here in order to capture the attention of education consumers.
When I think about women who have impacted me professionally, I always think of my mentor at the Wall Street Journal. She was a veteran reporter who embodied confidence and strength, and these are qualities that I strive to embody every day myself. And most importantly, she knew how to support other women. She took me under her wings and taught me everything she knew, and for that, I will always be grateful.
I like this one.
Any guesses?
I'll
click through.
I guess, okay, positive emotion. That's what I was thinking. Cool. Yeah, so actually the way it worked is that we were kind of mapping up different strategies in video, and then Megan looked for a video. So I knew, it was one of those 5, but okay, so cool. Positive emotion, I love it. So the idea behind positive emotion, if we try to think about it from the psychological perspective or the research perspective, it all has to do with how we make connections with people and with things, right? So I want you to think about the people who you're closest with, and think about why you're close with them. Usually you're close with them because you went through something emotional with them, and usually it's something positive. So the same way we feel close to people, we also feel close to brands when we feel those positive emotions and we start associating those brands with those positive emotions. And that's, in the end of the day, what brands want to do, right? They want to have a video so that we feel positively about their brand. And there are some cool studies that talk about specifically positive emotion, and they show that when there's more emotion, we pay more attention, which is actually how you started, Megan. We pay more attention to things that are more emotional, if it's images or if it's videos. We also remember emotional stimuli more. So if we have an emotional video versus a non-emotional video, we'll remember more facts about the emotional video. And there are many studies that show a correlation between how people feel about the brand or how emotional the brand message was and actual decision making. So it's not only something that's in the awareness stage, it also affects the decision stage.
It's really cool to think about too. And honestly, we watched and looked at a lot of education examples to pull together this webinar for you guys and try to find some great strategies for you and see what other people were doing. And not a lot of education marketers are using emotion effectively in their ads. So just showing happy people, there's a lot of very serious advertisements, which is also important for this vertical in some cases, but just making sure that people are smiling, you're looking at their faces, they're expressive, could probably go a long way. All right, so here's the next one. This one is from Staples. This is probably one that some of you have seen before. This is a pretty iconic advertisement. It's going to be a little bit grainy because it's from 1996. It was shown on television, but keep in mind what sort of strategy you think they're using here.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's that time of year again. They're going back. It's back to school time at Staples. Over 7,000 supplies at guaranteed low prices. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Staples. That was easy.
This one is so great. I love it. I could seriously, I see myself in that man. Like, I would go and start in that kind of store.
It's so funny, it's so iconic, and I hope you guys had a chuckle while you were laughing at it.
Yeah, so that's a great example for humor. Humor is interesting because it's basically a positive emotion, right? But it goes a step further. We have it like an actual physical reaction to humor. While with positive emotion, we might have like a small smile. With humor, like a lot of times we'll actually crack up. That really shows how strong the emotion is. There are some studies that show that when you ask random people on the street, or when you ask participants in a study, what kind of commercials they prefer, apparently 70% of them say that they prefer humorous commercials. So this is what people like to watch. And another thing that they found is that, similar to positive emotion, people will remember more details about humorous videos or humorous ads. And they will start associating, again, that brand with something funny or something cheerful. So that's really obviously a great thing. There was one thing that we found that you want to be cautious of, and that is about with humor, you're making fun of something, right? So I guess in this case, who are we making fun of? Making fun of like the dad that was like going crazy in the store.
Yeah,
So,
making fun of the dad. I think it was more like sassy in a way, like he was just so happy they were going back to school. But yeah, making fun of the dad.
Right. So anyways, when you're putting together a creative, you really want to think like, okay, who are we laughing at here, right? And making sure that the person or the thing that we're laughing at is okay, and it's we don't want to laugh at something that could generate controversy. You want to make sure that you're laughing at something that's appropriate. So that's the only thing that I found that was kind of like dangerous in the world of humor. So something to keep in mind.
All right, ready for the next one here. This is a back to school advertisement from Target.
I feel golden. I feel like glitter on my shoulders. I feel golden. I feel like, oh, I feel golden. And I'm feeling like gold. And I'm feeling brand new. Yeah, I'm feeling brand new. And I'm feeling brand new. Yeah, I'm feeling brand new.
You guys couldn't see it,
I know
like that song a lot, and I was actually dancing in my seat a little bit.
This is movement for sure. That's
Yes,
a great example. Another thing, it's also positive emotion, right? Like a lot of these videos have a bunch of different strategies, but this was a really great example for movement. So movement is interesting. Anything that's moving in real life and on digital is always going to grab our attention. So if you look at like eye tracking studies, or just if you have an eye tracker, you can always see that if something is moving, that's where your eye is going. And the reason why is for survival reasons. So if somebody is in the jungle and trying to survive, it's really important for them to notice things that are moving, even a little bit, and to notice those things really quickly, because that thing that's moving could be really dangerous, or the thing that's moving could be food. And the same instinct that we have, humans, to look towards things that are moving, animals have too. So if like animals will notice things that are moving, and that same instinct that we have in the jungle will also apply online. So there are online behavior studies that show that when we're scrolling down a page and there's something moving, our eye almost has to go there. And this is cool, that even if we tell ourselves don't look, it's like a survival instinct that we have to look towards that thing that's moving. So that is the reason why video works so well. And it's also the reason why videos with a lot of movement work so well, because when there's a lot of movement, it forces us to look and to engage with the video, keeps us interested and keeps our eye like wanting to know, wait, what is that? What's moving there? What's happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't a specific strategy, but I also felt like that video was very engaging because it was so colorful.
Hmm,
Which is something
interesting.
one of the things that we track on our trends website, which we'll talk to you guys about later.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So this is from ICDC College.
Hi, I'm Romeo Miller. My parents always told me how important the education was. That's why I went to college. And education sticks with you and keeps you on top. ICDC College will set you on the right track towards earning your degree in careers like Homeland Security, medical assistant, crime scene investigation, and addiction counseling. In today's world, you got to take command of your future. At ICDC College, you'll get resources like financial aid and your own computer to help you accomplish your goals. Your future is waiting. It's your time to go to college. So call ICDC College and change your life today. It's happening over at ICDC College. This is your future. Don't waste it. It's up to you to make a move. Roll on up to ICDC College.
Say ICDC, call it ICDC College. Say ICDC, I'm so ICDC College.
This is also kind of funny.
Yeah, it was good. I was laughing too. So I don't know if anyone recognized that person, but that is a famous rapper and hip hop artist, Lil Romeo, helping to rep what I believe, I couldn't confirm this when I was researching, but what I believe is his alma mater.
Cool. Yeah, so celebrity endorsements are interesting. So we spoke before about humor and positive emotion, and we spoke about what happens when you feel something positive or you feel a positive emotion and you start making associations with that feeling and the brand. So similar to that, associations also happen when you have a celebrity that you love and you start associating that celebrity with a product or with a brand because they appear in an ad. So that's adding a celebrity that people love is a great way to kind of make people love your brand, similar to the way they love the celebrity. There was something that was pretty interesting in research about this, something called parasocial interaction. It's one of the reasons why they think that celebrity endorsements work so well. What it means is that we apparently feel like we know celebrities really, really well, even though we don't know them at all. And we feel like we're close to them. And because we feel like we're close to them, we trust them and we trust what they say. So apparently, the same way I would feel if my sister endorsed a product or told me that some kind of product was good, and I would believe her because I trust her, if a celebrity who I feel like I know would endorse a product, then I would trust them too because I feel close to them. So this is interesting. I don't know how many of you guys actually feel close to celebrities, but this is what the research said, and I spoke to a few friends, and they kind of felt like it was true. So, Megan, I wonder, do you believe it? Are you into that, the parasocial interaction?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. I'm not sure that I personally feel that close with any of the celebrities that I'm a fan of, but I understand how it can certainly be effective, for sure.
Yeah.
I think more like I'd be more into like thought leaders. I'm not sure I'd call them celebrities, but there are definitely some people who I'd navigate towards products too if they endorse them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Anyway, so the studies show that, of course, it helps, have positive associations towards the brand, and they also found higher attention and higher recall. So we also paid more attention when there was a celebrity in the advertisement, and we also remembered more details about the advertisement later.
All right, I believe this is our last one. This is kind of out of the box thinking. This is Babble, which, if you don't know, is an application that helps you learn new languages.
Sorry? I don't understand. Excuse me.
And just walks away. That's the last time I saw my father.
When you don't know the language, you feel like an outsider. But with Babble, you can be having conversations before you know it.
What are you thinking?
I'm so hungry I could eat you guys. I'm joking. I'm not going to. I'm kidding. I'm with you too.
I feel like this is another one that also spans humor a little bit.
Yeah, it's also funny. You found some funny videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also like I felt like I felt for the guy. Like I like it. It's a good FOMO example. Um, yeah, so FOMO, fear of missing out. It's a really strong uh, emotion. And the research around this really talks about how we always want to feel connected, and we all always want to feel part of something. And when we don't feel part of something, it's a really strong motivator. Like we have an internal motivation to always do things in order to feel part of something, of a group, of a social group. And that's one of the reasons why, we're always looking at the news and we always want to know what's going on. We want to be updated because we want to know what everybody else is talking about. So we feel part of that group. So there's another reason why FOMO is so powerful, and that is regarding the intensity of which people and we all feel loss. So according to studies, we prefer avoiding loss even more than acquiring an equivalent gain, meaning we prefer not losing $5 than gaining $5. Like we really feel the loss very strongly. That's basically what it means. And FOMO is kind of, it's kind of a loss. Like we might miss out on something. And because that missing out is so strong, it drives us to always try to be part and try to be included. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why FOMO is so powerful. And a lot of different strategies, video, sponsored content, and different formats as well are all using this FOMO strategy.
I would truly be more devastated if I lost $5 than if I found $5. I was just thinking about it when you said that. It's very true. Like if I opened my wallet and $5 was missing, I would be much more upset than if I just found $5 on the street. It's interesting.
Yeah, there are tons of studies about it, and it is really interesting. Like it's a cool thought.
All right, so back to our analysis here a little bit. We're talking about video in a lot of ways, right? So you can either run video advertisements themselves, or you can host video on your landing pages. So in this analysis, we looked at landing page types, the type of content on specific landing pages, what's behind the ad. And a lot of education marketers are running text-based articles. And there's a huge opportunity for landing pages with videos on them, whether or not they're explainer videos or commercials or maybe interviews, and any type of video can work. But there's definitely a high opportunity for education marketers to embed more videos onto landing pages specifically. All right, so it's not all about video, right? We've just showed you a ton of video examples here, and that's because video is such a hot item and it is recommended, as we just showed you in the analysis, but there's also a lot of opportunity for education marketers and their sponsored content campaigns. So we want to show you some examples here. We're sure you're all familiar with the 3 basic stages of the funnel: awareness, consideration, and decision. And these are just some examples of how you can move someone through the funnel with sponsored content campaigns. So you might qualify somebody's interest in educational classes, or just maybe that they want to move up in their job or do something different with a campaign like 10 worst college majors for the current job market. People are probably interested in education in general if they're clicking on that. At the consideration phase, test your marketing know-how with our quiz. That kind of qualifies someone who might be considering whether or not they have enough marketing know-how for their current job. Picking on marketers because we are marketers. And then finally, get an audiobook today for a more enjoyable holiday, right? As we head into the holiday season here. This is a good strategy to sort of capture those people who are in the decision stage and are maybe ready to buy a product, in this case, for example, an audiobook.
Yeah, just one thought is that both the awareness and the consideration kind of feel like FOMO strategies, right? Like 10 worst college majors for the current job market. Like, oh, am I missing out on something, right? Like, what is it? What's that knowledge that I don't know? And also the second one about the quiz, like test your marketing know-how. Like, oh, do you really know marketing, right? I feel like they're both kind of FOMO.
Yeah, yeah. Or the worst for the first one, like, are you on the outside of people who aren't endorse college majors?
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So just another example to sort of drive home what we're saying here. You might qualify someone in the awareness stage with an example like a career in healthcare administration could be very fulfilling. You know, somebody might just be interested in a career change if they're clicking on that sponsored content. At the consideration stage, retirees' fast and cheap online degrees are here. They're definitely considering looking for a degree if they're clicking on that ad. And finally, at the decision stage, wanna help people launch your career in healthcare with an online degree. Those people are really considering an online degree and should be qualified in the decision stage there. Also, I apologize, when we exported the PowerPoint, it looks like some of these images got blurry. That stinks. We didn't mean to do that.
Cool. So one thing we always like to talk about is data. So we come up with our best practices based on a lot of data analyses. But one resource that you guys can also use is called Taboola Trends. You can find it on trends.taboola.com. What we have here is an analysis that runs every single week, takes every single one of the items that run in our network, and analyzes them for best practices. Now, the reason why we did this is because we understood that having best practices that are static isn't enough. Why? Because education vertical will work different than any other vertical, and one country will work differently than another country, and these trends are always changing. So that's the reason why we have Taboola Trends, because it's constantly updating and because you're able to filter. So here, as an education marketer, filtering by education, the education category will give you the types of images, types of keywords, and types of different kind of marketing materials that will work specifically for your category. So this is a great resource to kind of look at before you start your campaign.
There's also, I find some really counterintuitive trends on here sometimes when I'm looking at it, like the one that's on the screen right now. I kind of mentioned this with the colorful video earlier. We typically hear that colorful images and colorful videos are always performing better, but we're actually seeing black and white videos and images right now increasing click-through rates, which is counterintuitive, right? I would never think that, but it's true. It's what's trending on the web, and it's good information to have.
Yeah, totally. One other tool is called the title analyzer or the title predictive tool. This is really cool, specifically for sponsored content, for advertisers using sponsored content where you need a title. What you can do here is you can actually type in any title in any language, and it'll tell you what the predictive CTR for that title is. And the idea here is to edit that title a little bit, make it a little longer, make it a little shorter, change some words, and see if the second title has a higher or lower predictive CTR. And continue, playing this game against like your previous titles and see how can you make it even a higher predictive CTR. This is a really cool tool because basically in real, like before this tool was available, you'd have to actually spend money testing all these different creatives. And here what you can do is actually choose creatives with the highest predictive CTR or the highest predictive success rate, and then use those creatives to test in a live campaign. So it gives you a higher chance for success.
All right, so to wrap it up, I wanted to talk a little bit about measuring your campaign, what sort of KPIs other education marketers are using on the open web, and also just how to optimize as you go. So this is just a slide that shows exactly how education marketers are tracking their campaigns across the open web. It looks like the majority of education marketers are tracking leads, which makes sense, right? I mean, you're not going to, maybe you won't purchase a full degree package or something like that through one click, right? So a lot of education marketers are tracking things like form fills or people reaching out for more information. They're also tracking page views secondary for more awareness campaigns, and some are tracking purchases depending on the type of product, but the majority of you are tracking leads. Oops. All right, so specifically when we talk about the open web and discovery campaigns, there are a couple of ways that you can optimize. And the first is by site. And by site, we mean the specific publisher site that your campaigns are being shown on. And we typically just recommend here that when you first get started, that you run run-of-network campaigns, which means you don't pick and choose which sites your campaigns are shown on. If there are certain sites that you absolutely do not want your campaigns shown on, you can make sure that doesn't happen. But typically get as wide as you possibly can, because you'd be surprised where people will respond to your campaigns. And after about a week or a week and a half of running your campaign with a wide run of network by site, you can optimize for the sites that are performing better for you. And the same is true for audiences in terms of audience segments, right? So as education marketers, your instinct might be to target people with an education segment, right? And it is logical and it makes sense. But again, you'd be very surprised. You'd be surprised at the people that will respond to your campaigns, right? So we ran a campaign with an education app recently, and they were targeting college students in their country with another language speaking app. And they actually discovered when they removed all of their audience targeting that people ages 40 to 65 were also responding really well to their campaign. People that they wouldn't have intuitively thought wanted to download an app were doing so and were interested. So just keep it in mind that when you're first starting out, you want to go a little bit wide so you can learn the open web is a different space than what you might be used to on a search or social campaign. Collect those audience segments and then optimize as you go. And just a few takeaways. So to wrap it up here, you should be focusing on tablet devices, or at least test tablet devices for your next campaign, and use video, both on landing pages and in your ad creatives. Definitely take into consideration some of those marketing strategies that Rachel shared with us: humor, positive emotion, celebrity endorsements, motion, and FOMO. And make sure you're checking image and keywords trends regularly, no matter where you're checking them. They are always changing, and following best practices won't always be most effective for you. That's really it. We'd like to invite you guys to answer some questions now.